Hi, this is the lecture video for chapter 14, Lean supply chain, and it has been divided into three parts. So first part, we will learn a big picture of lean production. So we will talk about what it, and we will talk a little bit about the lean logic as well as a benchmarking, the TPS, the Toyota production system. And the second part is actually the main part. We discuss like how to design and kind of like the lean supply chains in a form in organization. And we will discuss three things. So we'll talk a little bit about the terms, what does mean value stream, and then we will discuss the lean supply chain components as well as the last parts, the design principles. And for the design principles, we will also discuss three things. So the lean layouts or the lean concepts, we call it, and the lean production schedules, as well as the lean supply chains. The last part will be lean services because actually like if we want to do some lean stuffs, especially the main logic is like eliminate the waste. So it's really it's easier to control in manufacturing compared to the service industry. However, the lean has already like proved as a successful application to services industry as well. So the last part for chapter 14, we will discuss lean service. Now let's take a look with the first part. What was it? So the lean production refers to a focus on eliminating as much waste as possible. So this is actually like we wanted to involves like the eliminations of waste. So just like the Six Sigma we just learned, Six Sigma we want to eliminate the variations. The lean here we wanted to eliminate the waste. And the value chain means like actually this is back to like what operation is. This is at the very beginning we learned. So for our operation and supply chain management, we feel that we actually is a transformation process, especially for operations. We transform the inputs into outputs, we add values. So value chain is actually like each steps, like if we focus on for the supply chain aspects, this is actually create each steps which create values in supply chain. And if it's not create value, apply the lean production is something we need to remove. So this is what we call non-value added. So we need to remove those non-value added activities. And customer value means something like the customer is willing to pay. So the waste is actually something like which does not add any values for the customer's perspective. And so back to the lean operations, just like I mentioned, it's actually like compared with manufacturing industry is harder to control in services. The first reason is because of the uncertainties in the in task times. So even like in a restaurant, like for different tables here, like they just like for each table, for each group of the customers, they enjoy their dinner. But for each group, the task time, like the service time, is really hard to control. Some of them only needs like 40 minutes, 30 minutes. Some of them maybe needs more than 3 hours. So this is actually like for each the service delivery is kind of like a unique process. So this is really hard to control the task times. And another reason is because of the demand is uncertainty. And we also like actually like we can do something like we can do some forecasting to predict how much demand for these services in future. But we also know that like we don't have any perfect forecasting, which means it may not be like the exactly the demands you may need to provide to the customers. At the same time, like if we consider for the manufacturing, if we produce more, we can storage them. But for the services, the services is not inventoried. So we cannot like just like store them. And the capacity also must be available, like when the demand arises. But like for the manufacturing, we can do some back orders instead. So we have more solutions to control the demand in manufacturing compared to like control the demand in services. That's also another reason like why it's so hard to control, I mean, in services. And the last one is about the customers. So for most of the manufacturing, if you think back on how to distinguish the manufacturing and service. So one of the degree we use is how about the customer contact. So most of the manufacturing industry, it has kind of a no degree of customer in contact, but for service, customer actually are involved in the whole process. And this also introduces the uncertainty. And for the lean production at Six Sigma, so this is another thing I'd like to get to you before we move to the next part, the lean logic. So we have already learned Six Sigma. Now we talk about lean production, and these two philosophy actually work best in repeatable, standardized operations, and so we know that it's really, really hard to standardize the services, even like many services are unrepeatable. Okay, so now let's talk about the logic of lean. And the main logic is eliminating waste. So the lean is actually based on the logic that nothing will be produced until it is needed. So we want to eliminate any waste. And we have different types of waste. We will talk about that for the TPS example. But in lean, so we apply a pull system, which means like when we receive the order, then we start to produce. And this is actually the following the chart here. Actually, this slide over there gives you a better, explanation about the pull system. So when an item is sold, then it's actually kind of triggers an order to the factory production line, and the workers like each upstream the station here, then the pull for the next station. So the toilet paper in Walmart is out of stock. It's kind of like sold out or sold. Then when the toilet paper like sold one, the in Walmart like one toilet paper like is sold, then it's kind of a trigger to fill the demand like in the future. So the Walmart may just like place an order for their supplier, and their supplier like for a store like the store of Walmart, they may just like place an order for the warehouse like put an order for the manufacturing, and the manufacturing like they may need the woods like the upstream like suppliers to just like produce or provide like the materials they may need to produce the papers. So this is kind of like the triggers to for the upstream to another upstream over there, like across the whole supply chain. And this is the lean logic. And the lean logic is like if this toilet paper isn't sold, then it will not have that trigger. So will not have, the Walmart will not place an order to their suppliers. Their suppliers will not place another order for their suppliers. So this is kind of like the pull system. Once we receive the demand, then we start to produce. And the last thing for the first part I'd like to introduce for you is about the TPS. This is actually a benchmarking of the lean manufacturing, so the Toyota production system. And the Toyota production system was developed to improve the quality and productivity, and is actually predicted onto philosophers central to the Japanese culture. So one of them is elimination of the waste, while the other is respect to people. And there are 7 categories of waste. The Toyota, this company like regards. So the first one is kind of overproduction, as well as the waiting time, the transportation, the inventory. Inventory is one of the waste. the processing waste, the waste of motion, and the product defects. So the Toyota, when they apply this system to help them to integrate the lean operations in their business, this is one of the big main components they consider about like about how to reduce the wastes. And another is about the people. So we should, if you want to apply lean operations, we should regard the people as the most valuable assets in your company. And as well as like the Toyota also like based on most of the the Japanese culture, they have those like the strategies or the rules to show respect for their people, to value their people, and to provide like enlarge the responsibilities of the employees and empower the employees, and they feel like the people here, they are kind of valuable assets, will help them to improve the whole quality and productivity. So this is the examples for the TPS, and hope you could like get a better understanding about, kind of overnosis about what lean is based on the benchmark here, the TPS. Okay. Now let's move to the second part of chapter 14, where it talks about the lean supply chain. So about the lean supply chain, this is actually we consider about how to maximize the customer value, because like when we just want to involve the lean to the supply chain, our goal is like maximize the customer values, and the value stream is kind of like the tools consists of value adding and non-value adding activities. This is value stream map, especially this is a special flow chart, so we have already learned flow charts like in chapter 9, but this flow chart here will help us to illustrate what are the value added activities, what are the non-value added activities when we want to design or order, like when we consider the whole process. And if when we apply like the supply chain's waste reduction relates to the optimization of the value adding activities and remove all the non-value adding activities. And we have a few components like we can consider about, actually we have 6 in total. So the supply chain components, which we integrate the lean in it, we consider like what kinds of the examples of lean suppliers. So the suppliers should be able to respond to the changes, and they should have like a lower price due to the efficiency and the lean process, and also provide a higher quality. And if we consider the second component, the procurement, then one of the key is the automation. And while another key is the visibility, so the supplies must sit into the customer's operations. The customers also sit into the supplies operations. This is about the procurement here. And for the lean manufacturing, is actually this system will produce what the customer wants in the quantity the customer wants when the customer wants, and with the minimal resources. So it talks about like how to do the things more efficiently and effectively while eliminating all the waste. So we just want to produce like exactly the customer wants in quantity, location, timing we consider, and with the lowest, the resources. And the lean warehousing, this is focused on the storage stuff. So we want to eliminate all the non-value added steps and the waste in storage process. So this is the number 4 components. Number 5, we talks about the lean logistics. And the lean logistics could be applied to the functions associated with the movement of the materials through the system. Sometimes it also including like the information movement as well. And the key areas including like optimize the mode selection, putting orders, combine the multi-stock truck nodes, optimize the routing, cost stocking, the import-export process, and the backhaul minimization. So this is what the components of the lean logistics. And the last one is the lean customers. So lean customers should have a really good understanding of their business needs and the specified meaningful requirements. So they understand their needs, they value the speed and flexibility. They also like have a really effective partnership with the suppliers. So this is all the 6 lean focused supply chain components. Now let's move to the last part for the second. So we discuss, okay, we understand the supply chain, the lean supply chain. How to design it? So we have 3 principles. And those 3 key principles will be able to get the design of the lean supply chain. And for those 3 categories, the lean concepts, we will discuss about like a few terms here. And for the lean production schedules, we will focus on the timing. So we will focus on how to reduce the setup times, the waitings, and how to do a smooth flows and others. And for the lean supply chain, we will discuss like the specialized plans, the suppliers, and how to build a lean supply chain. So let's take a look with the first one, the lean concepts. The lean concepts is also like something we focus on the layout. And the lean requires actually the plant layout to be designed to ensure the balanced workflow with a minimum of the inventory, so work-in-process inventory, which kind of like the work-in-process. And the preventive maintenance is emphasized to ensure the flows are not interrupted by downtime or the equipment or others. So we have a technique we can apply, which we call the group technology. So this is actually a philosophy help us to group like the different parts into families. Then we will be able to make sure like all the flows are smooth, and we can just like remove all the non-value added downtimes and other stuffs over there. And in the textbook, it gives you like examples about how they group like the different parts, but with the same objective into like a families, the group families, to make sure like they can do things more efficiently. And so another terms like for the lean concepts here, and like to introduce for you is about the quality at the source. This is actually we have already discussed like for the chapter 13, chapter 12 when we talks about quality management. This is also relates to the employees as well. So if you want to integrate the quality at the source, these techniques into your lean supply chain, it means like you need to enlargement the responsibilities of your employees at the same time empower them. So it means quality at the source means like you fix like whenever you find the mistakes, like you want to improve the quality, you find the defects or the defective process steps over there, the employees should be able to identify that. At the same time, they should have the power to stop the whole production line, then or the whole line to fix it. So it means like do not pass the mistakes or the defects to the next, or they don't have to wait for approval for the senior management. So this is what we have like in terms of the quantity at the source. So do it right the first time, and if something goes wrong, stop the process immediately. It asks the workers should know what they are doing. Very great, and they need to have the power to fix it, to stop the whole process. And the just-in-time production is we don't want to produce like any extra units. Just producing what is needed, when needed, and where needed, and nothing more. So this is like we feel anything over the minimum is kind of a waste. And it could be applied to repetitive manufacturing, especially. And we hope like the lot size should be really, really small to number one. And even like the vendors may ship several times a day, and it could and but the just in time also like give you some ideas about why we feel like the inventory is kind of one of the type of the wastes. And inventory, some of the companies, like some of the industry, especially like they feel like they need to keep more because to meet the uncertainties in the future because no perfection forecasting. So they don't want to lose their customers in the future because they don't have enough inventories. That's one of the common reason like why some companies keep a large inventory. But for lean operations here, we need to regard that if we keep a really, really high level of inventories, it may hide the problems you have for your process, especially like for example the setup times, the scrap, the the machine downtime and others. So this is what we have over there. So this water level means the inventory level, and this is your business. The ship here is represent your business. If you have a high enough inventory, if you keep a lot inventory, those rocks will be hidden, so your ship will go through smoothly. However, the problems are hidden doesn't mean they are not existing. So they still like in your process. You have a poor training, the materials handling is really awful. You have a really, really high setup times, the downtimes, and you also have some quality problems when it's your materials. But because you have the enough inventory, so sometimes those problems just be hidden. And if we reduce the inventory level, you will be able to find those problems. And you probably feel, okay, it means the ship just like crashed. But it sometimes it's more important to identify problems and fix it instead of hiding them forever because it will waste of money, waste of a lot of things. Okay. So this is about like the first category of the designing principles of lean supply chain. We talked about the lean layouts, the lean concepts. Now let's talk about the lean production schedules. For the lean production schedules, we have four terms you need to figure out before we move to more details. So the first one is level schedule, which means pull materials into final assembly at the constant rate. The freeze windows means the period of time during which the schedule is fixed and no further change are possible. The backflash means the calculations of how many of each part will require to produce the actual quantity of finished products built, while the uniform plan loading means like something to the production flow to dampen schedule variation. And for the lean schedules, a very useful techniques we apply is Kanban. Kanban is actually a Japanese term. It means the sign or instruction card. So most of situation we use a card as a signal to instruct the next step you need to do or to give like some instruction about it's out of like the materials, like you need to replace the materials, you need to fill them or others. So we use cars, containers, and this is also make up the Kanban pull system. So what Kanban pull system? This slides give you a really good examples here. And we consider like this production line, they produce like part A and part B. So whenever like this is the production Kanban. This is kind of like a visual Kanban. So whenever you see a Kanban over there, like for the different parts over there, you will have a clear ideas about what's going on and then to fix it. So the Kanban system is kind of like help you to do some like to make your process more visualization and to give you direct instructions. And we also apply, like except for the Kanban pool system, we also like apply other approaches like the Kanban scores. We mark the spaces on the floor to identify where the materials should be stored, as well as we can use the container instead of the cart. So we can use the container itself to be a signal, the signal about, okay, it's time for fill this container with the part A or part B or part C. Or we have some like corner golf balls to help you to do that signal stuffs as well. And another thing I like to introduce here is about the setup times. And for the setup times, we found like if you want to, the reduction this in setup or change over the times is really necessary for you to achieve a smooth flow. And another factors we need to emphasize is like actually we prefer a small node size. So you can take a look at these two figures here. So if you reduce like the node size for 6 to 2, the total cost will be reduced because the holding cost is kind of constant. The setup cost will be reduced like if we have a smaller node size. So if you want to minimize the setup time, this is also one of the important factors you may need to consider about. And now let's move to the last part for the design principles. We talked about the needs supply chain. So for the needs supply chains here, we discuss the specialized plans as well as collaborate with the suppliers in building the lean system supply chain. So building a lean supply chain here is actually comes for the James Mack and Daniel Jones in their work lean thinking. So they provide the following guidance like to help you to implement the lean supply chain. So you may need to consider the values must be defined jointly for each product family based on the customer perception as well as like the last one. So this slides actually give you a kind of like guidance or tips you can use to implement the lean supply chain. And the previous slides here is that actually gave you like the two concepts which relates to the lean network designing. So we need to discuss the specialized plans, the collaborate with the suppliers. And the last part for chapter 14, we discuss lean services. So we have 10. We have the 10 most successful techniques applied to service companies to integrate the lean. And they are organized problem-solving groups to develop supply networks. And if you want to find more details about like the description for each of them, you can go back to the textbook for the 183 pages. And if you use a physical textbook, it should be on page 413. So this is all the contents for chapter 14. So the chapter 14, just like chapter 9, and it's kind of like give you an introduction about one of the concepts like we apply in our lean, in our operation supply chain management, the lean service. And if you want to get more sense about what lean is, like except for the slides I provide to you, the slides I provide to you here, like I emphasize all the points, like you may meet the questions in the in the exams, in the test too. However, if you want to get more sense about one thing, so a very useful way for you is to do some internet scanning to take a look with the Toyota, like the system, the TPS system, to take a look with some examples for the Japanese, for US as well, like to take a look about how they do things and to get more kind of like sense about what lean is. Okay, so this is all the contents I'd like to introduce for you for chapter 14.